Welcome to Soltron. This is an update video for my custom Beast Wars Chimera figure. Here's a size comparison so you can see how he looks with Magmatron and Leo Convoy, and the guys I like to consider like the last bosses of Beast Wars, which would be like these two guys in my book. So he's pretty gigantic, he scales well pretty much with everybody. Okay, and here's a 360 view of Chimera, and you can see he's definitely a mess of various body parts. Like his legs are probably the biggest offenders, but even his arms are pretty untidy with just giant animal limbs hanging off of him. But you can see basically he's got the dragon parts on the back, he's got the goat parts here on this side of his body, he's got a snake here on this leg, and then he's got his lion parts are on this side of the body. But yeah, I think he's pretty cool because he's actually a mix of many different Beast Wars figures. So yeah, we've got the Transformers Prime Beast Hunters Predaking as the core body and the dragon parts. And then we got the Beast Wars Neo Leo Convoy. And then we've got the Transmetal Ramulus, I want to say. And then we've got the Beast Machines. I forget what this guy's called. Cobrata, maybe? I think that's his Beast Wars name. Yeah, so he's made of a lot of different Beast Wars figures from different timelines, which I think is pretty great. And another cool thing about this figure was he was made entirely just out of leftover parts I had in my parts bin. And I just had the idea of making this Chimera, and I just happened to have all the animals, which was really awesome. But yeah, and you can see one of the real big problems about this figure. Well, I guess let's take a look at his head sculpt. Of course, this is just the Beast Hunters Predaking head sculpt. Nothing special there, except for I gave him these giant horns just to make him look more like a Dragon Ball Z villain or something. But then, yeah, the biggest problem with this guy, he technically doesn't have any hands because I used his hands for another figure a long time ago. So this is where his hands would be, but there's nothing there, which makes him even harder to look at. Like, it's very complicated to tell what's what in this figure because he's just so burdened with animal parts. You can see the thighs very clearly in his torso, but it's hard to tell what is his arms and what's not his arms. Basically, this whole thing is his arm, all this chunk and mess back here. This whole thing ends up being his arm. This arm, I think, is a little bit better because it's skinnier. You could kind of tell what's going on. And then this leg is just a huge mess. We got a bunch of goat legs back here, and then this giant snake. And then this leg just has all these lion parts. So his biggest problem is that he doesn't really condense down into a single robot. I might need to reconsider how that works. But yeah, and then he's just got this giant, or this dragon head just dangles back here. It doesn't really collapse in a very convincing way either. And that's kind of like his big issue, is he's just got all these parts hanging off of him. But he does have some cool play features. So the way he works is basically all of his animal parts can be connected to his arms and become weapons. So obviously the lion claws, like those are very obviously, the Leo Convoy claws can just deploy. They have the same spring-loaded gimmick. So they can just become like slashing claws for this arm. So that works very nicely. And then the other thing you can do is you can pop off this lion head, it's all Lego ball joints. So you just pop that off, and then you're going to fan out all of his main pieces. So you get this kind of looking thing, which is pretty cool. And then you can just pop that ball joint, goes nicely into the socket that's right under where his hand would be. All right, that was a little bit harder than it should have been. But yeah, you pop that in there, and now he's got kind of this lion head shield on one arm, which is pretty cool, and you can like spin it around. I had to disable the gimmick of just the main part spinning. It was just getting too complicated, but that would have been cool if just the hair part spin, and then his mouth still opens and closes, which is cool. Oh yeah, I guess you're supposed to use the button technically. So that gimmick still works. I tried to keep that all in place. But yeah, so he's got this cool lion shield, and I guess he could probably breathe fire or something. Why not? And you can get this cobra head, and you could just unwrap the cobra from his leg. So this is just twisted around, and then that's connected on another ball joint right here. You just pull that right off, and then this whole piece, so you get a good look at his cobra form, we can unpeg his cobra arms, which were part of the original robot's transformation. I guess this would have been cool if all the robots could still transform into their robot modes, but I disabled pretty much all of them. So otherwise there would be a lot more extra parts hanging around. And you can just have like these, so you just spread out the arms, and then you have like kind of this hook weapon, and then you just connect all of this into the ball joint that's under this fist. And then you have basically this giant whip weapon, which I think that's pretty cool. Like this shield and whip, so he can like block with his shield, with his spinning lion shield, and then he's like flailing this whip around with his other arm. So that's a pretty crazy combination. I really like the way that looks, actually, even though it's totally ridiculous. And we can go ahead and unpeg these parts. And then we can get the other heads involved. So we can get this goat head. Just pull that out of the joint, and we can open this goat head up like this, basically. Yeah, I guess his spring-loaded gimmick still works too. So, I mean, that's still a thing you can do, I guess. And then you can just open this up. And this I like to pretend is kind of like a bow weapon. So you can just peg this ball joint, can go back in here. And this can be his bow. It's kind of like clashing with everything, but it's technically there. So you get this bow, or I guess he could like use this as an axe weapon with this arm. And then you can grab his dragon head and just pop that off the joint. Actually, maybe I want this one too. And then you can put that on this joint here, and he can have like this fire-breathing cannon on his other arm. So yeah, he's got a lot of battle options, which I think is pretty fun. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but I think he makes a pretty good villain, and he's got just all these different weapons, which is pretty fun. So this guy can transform without any parts forming, which I think is pretty impressive. I guess I'll do that on camera. Why not? Okay, so here he is back with all his various animal parts put back together. So let's start with the easy things. We're just going to go ahead and rotate his head around, and then we lift up the dragon head or the dragon neck from his back and put that over his face, and then just rotate the dragon head into place. Okay, so dragon parts are done. And then we're going to get these wings out of the way. Just fold those all the way up. And then you can see the goat head is going to go next to the dragon head like this. And we're just going to use the ball joints and extend that as much as possible. And then this is kind of an annoying thing, is you bend his elbow the wrong direction, and that makes the goat's body. And then you're going to just orient these little goat forelegs, and those will become, try not to pop those off the joint, and those will become like part of his forelegs, and you kind of just push those together and pretend they're one leg. And then the easy part is the snake. You're just going to unfurl that snake, get him out of the way, and then you're going to take the goat hindquarters and you're going to rotate those out of his hollow calf, and then you can go ahead and point his toes and then fold up his whole leg assembly, just like in the original Predaking figure. These will just peg into his back like so, and then you rotate the goat hindquarters into place so that the tail will be facing backwards like this, and then you stretch out the legs because you need him to be tall, and then okay, apparently I have like this extra set of ball joints that is not supposed to be here. So this set of ball joints is just going to connect right there, and that connects the goat body to his goat torso. Okay, and then his leg fell off again like it likes to do. Oh yeah, and this is the one that's hard to get the ball joint into. Okay, and then I popped off both of his goat legs. Okay, and this side of his body is pretty much done. I just straightened him out and made him look a little bit nicer. And then we can rotate the snake body because he's going to end up facing forward. So that half of the body's done. So we'll just rotate him all the way around. And now we'll work on the lion pieces. So we'll just use the various ball joints on the lion here and get his head into the correct position, which is about here. We'll fold up his main pieces, which are on a lot of ball joints, so they get out of the way very nicely. So I do like that. And then we're going to fold his legs down. His forelegs are on these Lego joints, so we'll get those in place. And then it's kind of the same thing as the goat. We'll bend his, but his elbow doesn't need to bend backwards. We can just bend his elbow the correct direction. Actually, nope, I was wrong. His elbow does bend backwards, just like the other one. And this is going to become basically his or his back section is just this random flap right here. And then same thing with this, we're going to rotate his lion hindquarters out of the rear here, which is pretty difficult because he doesn't have that much mobility. Oh, maybe. Oh, I had this on the wrong ball joint. That's why he's having issues. It's supposed to be on this top ball joint up here. So this is basically just crumpled into his calf like this or something. Yeah, so it rotates out like this. And then you're just going to point the toes, fold up his whole leg again back into his body, and try to keep his lion parts out of the way. Get this wing out of the way. Okay, and then just orient these hindquarters into position. These are going to need to bend because otherwise he's going to be way taller than his goat half. Then you get his tail going, and then you're just going to connect this ball joint is just going to go right into that socket where his fist should be. And there he is, all connected up. And we're just gonna shift these ball joints around, make him look nice. All right, and here he is, all straightened up, cleaned up, looking pretty good with all his heads facing the correct direction. You can see like his lion form, his snake form in the back, his goat form on this side, and then his dragon or wyvern form in the middle. And now that he's been painted up, I think he looks really good. Everything blends together, maybe a little bit too much. There's not a lot of color separation, but I think he looks pretty fantastic. I'm really happy with this thing. Like, he just looks so devastating and beastly. It'd be cool if we get like a size comparison of our Voyager compared to this guy, which is definitely going to be in the Commander class. But you can see that the Lion itself is just a lot bigger. And yeah, I think they look pretty good squaring off against each other. And of course, he does have like another feature, is you can just pop off all of the main animal parts. They are just held on by two ball joints. Okay, that was supposed to stay glued in here. I don't know why that came out. But you can see that the lion's here, and I'll just go ahead and straighten out his limbs. All right, there's the bionic lion. He's a little bit skinny in places, but that's okay. He's like a demonic flame lion. What are you gonna do? And then for the goat, you just pop out right there at the shoulder joint. And then same thing, his hindquarters joint right here will pop out. And then this has got a nice double joint right here, which will help collapse his body a little bit. And then you use these struts right here and just kind of hide those. Just kind of like rotate everything in the best you can. This ball joint is basically right where I need his shoulder to go, but that's fine. We'll just ignore that. And then you just fold up his rear legs a little bit. And then we just condense him down as much as possible. Just fold up that bicep. And then use the double joints on his neck, make that shorter and more natural looking. And there you go, you get his little goat mode, which I think looks pretty cool, especially compared to his gigantic lion. I think that they scale nicely together. And then you get this mode, which you could do in a few different ways. This is like, so you can use this whole thing, and this can be a giant like flying serpent, snake or something. Oh yeah, and then you can take off this ball joint, flip the snake all the way around and get like this long tail section. So I think that looks pretty good. And then we can bring back in Leo Convoy, and you can see how he scales with the various animals. He's a little bit smaller than the Chimera lion, but he's about the same scale as this goat. And then of course you could just detach the snake and have four completely separate animals. So this could just be like a flying wyvern. He's got the ball joints so he can like face this way basically. And then you can have this enormous cobra, and he can do his like regular cobra pose. Of course, he's a little bit short. He needs a longer tail, but you can get the idea. And there's the four animals. And I think they look pretty good together. And just one last scale. Yeah, so this was a pretty fun custom. I really liked that I got to use all these leftover bits, and I think he turned out pretty nicely. So I'll see you in the next one.